Okay, welcome everyone. Oh, you see, I've been distracted.
Don't forget the recorder.
That's on.
Welcome to Coalition and Shalom, Harav Moshe Meir Weiss. Please choose the topic of the shir you'd like to give. Please enter the 3-digit daf number for the daf yomi shir you are about. Daf nun dalet. This daf number already exists. You are about to add a shir with the same daf number. You are now about to start recording the shir. When you are finished, please hang up.
Okay, welcome everyone. As we are co-sponsored by the Rezepkowitz family in honor of their parents, we're co-sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Chazan, for Shoshana Bas Panina and Simone Bas Rachel, co-sponsored by Binyamin Rivlin, Lila Nishmas Yitzhak Ben Avram Yehuda Alevi, co-sponsored by Shelley Zeitlin for his children, Ora, Eli and Orit, and for my refuah, Be'erich Gowas, refuah shalema for my shmer, Ben Esther Fradel, and refuah shalema for Dov Meir Ben Chai Gittel, and Akos HaTov to the shir, and by Shalom Fogel, Eli Nishmas, Yaakov Zeb Ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas God, and Yosef Ben Sion Ben Yaakov Zev, that the neshama should have an aliyah. We also learned the refuah shalema for one of my longest mispalim in Staten Island, Shai Eliyahu ben Rivka Rachel. He should have a refuah shalema b'sech shercha Yisrael. We welcome in Yaakov Warman, Michael Akta, Irving Fishbaum, Yisrael Fisher, Dr. Udell, Dov Solkowitz, Nachman Chapler, Shelley Zeitlin, Eddie Chazan, Shimon Klein, Yitzi Fuchs, Rabbi Kranz, Shalom Fogel, Mel Zachter, Shimon Deer, Menachem Umansky, Stephen Holtzman, the one and only Barry Cement, Avram Schenkman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Ilya Shutman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Jay Siegel. Here in the shul we have Berish Gesseman, Chaim Kramer, Michael Avram Chavin, Shlomi Yehuda, and Ruvain Shanet. Joining us, David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. We are holding at the very top of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph, the very top of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph. Tanya Kavasei de Rava. We have a brisa like Rava. Ish, it says in the pasuk, the sin of having a relation with a father's wife. Of course, it's only for an adult, prat lekatan. This excludes a minor. Asher yishkav es eshes aviv, who sleeps with his father's wife. Now, a father's wife, mashma bein eshes aviv shehiya imai, is his father's wife, who is his mother, and bein eshes aviv shalai imai, or his father's wife, who isn't his mother, but rather she's a stepmother. Imai she'enoi eshes aviv minayin. What about a mother out of wedlock? That's not his father's wife. Talmud Leimar, Ervas Oviv Gila, the nakedness of his father he uncovered. Now, how does that show a mother that's not in wedlock with the father? Mufna, that's Ekster, Ulahakish, Uladoin Mimena Gzeir Shava. Now, what's the Gzeir Shava that we learn out? That Ervas Oviv teaches me a mother that's out of wedlock. The Gemara will explain shortly. Mois Yumsu, he should be put to death, Beskila. Or maybe it's one of the other deaths and not Skila. I mean, it just says Mois Yumsu, you should be put to death. It says the key words, Nemar kan demeyem bam, the blood is upon them. V'nemar ba'oivi yadayni, and it says by the necromancers, demeyem bam, ma'alahalan beskila, just like over there, it's through stoning. Avkan beskila. Now, one of the principles that we will learn in length in Masechtas Makis is that the Torah gives us first a lav, a prohibition not to do something, and then there's another pasuk that cites the punishment. Now, we have just cited the psukim that inform us about punishment. And that's what the Gemara says, Oynish Shamanu. These are psukim of punishment. As Haraminayin, where do we see the prohibition? Ta'amalaymer ervas avicha lo yisigale. The nakedness of your father you should not uncover. Ervas avicha zu eishes avicha. This is your wife's father. Excuse me, your wife's father. This is eishes avicha. This is the wife of your father. Now maybe it means your father himself. And it's talking about a homosexual relationship. Maybe it's talking about a homosexual relationship with a father. It says over here, the nakedness of his father he uncovered. Just like over there, it's talking about it's talking about a marital relationship of your father's, not your father himself. It's talking about a marital relationship with your father. Now, when it says in the pasuk, "Ervas avicha lo yisigale," it tells us a lav, or mashma bein eishes aviv shehi imay. That includes any marriage with your father, whether it's your wife's father, your father's wife, who is also your biological mother, bein eishes aviv, or your father's wife, she'eina imay. That's not your biological mother; it's a stepmother. Imay she'eina eishes aviv minayin. How do we know a mother that's not your father's wife? It's a mother out of wedlock. It's a mother from a fling. The nakedness of your mother you should not uncover. So, ainly elabaz hara. I only know by a lav. That a mother out of wedlock is now we're going to see what that gezerah shava we were talking about was from before. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. How do we know by the penalty phase also that a mother out of wedlock is the same thing as a mother in marriage? It says by the einish phase, and it says by the prohibition phase, when it talks about the prohibition stage. A mother from a fling, like a mother from wedlock, after einish, so also by a penalty, a mother who is not from a wedlock, and then the pasuk says extra imchahi. So this is where Rabbi Yehuda knows that if she's your mother and also your father's wife, misham there's only a chatis in case it's done unwittingly because of a mother. Now, the Rabbanan say that this ervas avicha is talking about a homosexual relationship. Rabbanan ervas avicha mamish. Ervas avicha means your father's actual nakedness, that you're not allowed to sleep with your father. So the Gemara says, why do I need a pasuk for that? We already know that it's prohibited to have a homosexual relationship. That you're not allowed to be with a male. Says the Gemara, to be mechayev if you do it unwittingly, two chatas, one for a zocher and one for the fact that he's your father. Ukud Rabbi Yehuda, Da'am Rabbi Yehuda, Nachri. Now Nachri over here doesn't mean a guy. Nachri over here means Misha Nisnaker Lov, Shemayim. Somebody that acts in a strange way from his father in heaven. Habal Aviv, if one sleeps with his father unwittingly, so he's acting like a Nachri. Habal Aviv Chayiv Shtayim. chayiv for sleeping with his father, and he's chayiv for sleeping with the male. Habal achi aviv, with his uncle, with his father's brother, chayiv shtayim. Amar Rava. So Rava says when it says nachri over here, it doesn't mean a guy, because a guy doesn't bring a chatas. A guy gets killed. It's one of the 7 Noahide laws, and you can't kill him twice. So by a guy, it doesn't make sense that he's chayiv twice. Amar Rav mistaver milster Reb Yehuda be Yisrael b'shoigeg, where he does it unwittingly, or b'karban, and it's telling you that he's chayiv 2 karbanas. V'haidekan in nachri, it's only a lishnam al Yehu. It's a euphemism, because he's behaving like a guy. Not on purpose, but he's behaving like a guy. The Isach Gedaitach Nachri Mamish, if it's a guy, it can't be talking about a carbon. A guy doesn't bring a carbon. So it must be talking about where he does it willfully. Where it's willfully, what do you mean he's chayiv twice? You can't kill him twice. Dinoi Ma'iniu, what's his judgment? Katala. Death. Betray Katlei Katlasai, how could he be chayiv twice? You can't kill him twice. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned likewise. Habal Aviv, somebody sleeps with his father, chayiv shtayim. One for sleeping with his father and one for a homosexual relationship. Habal Achi Aviv, on his uncle, chayiv shtayim. Ikeda Amrei, some say that this is the loike Rabbi Yehuda. This is not like Rabbi Yehuda. V'ikeda Amrei afilu temer Rabbi Yehuda. Now remember, Rabbi Yehuda says that ervas avicha is not referring to the nakedness of the father. It's referring to ishus, the nakedness of the father's wife. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we would suggest that when it says yechayiv twice, it's not going according to Rabbi Yehuda, because he doesn't have the pasuk of ervas avicha. However, the ikadam re'afilu tema Rabbi Yehuda, if he sleeps with his father, he's chayiv twice. The pasuk of ervas avicha lo yisagala isn't referring to his father. But umaisala b'kal v'chaymer me'achi aviv. If he learns it out from a kal v'chaymer, if he's chayiv for sleeping with his uncle, and his uncle is only related to him via his father, he's surely chayiv for sleeping with his father. Oma achi aviv, the kurva da aviv. He's only related because of his father. Chayiv shtayim aviv. His father himself, like kol shekhay. Now, the opinion that says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's only chayiv once, is because he holds ein oinshin min hadin. We don't give penalties from a kal v'chaymer. Because the idea of a kal v'chaymer is that if we say it by something that's lenient, we should surely say it by something that's more severe. But maybe not. Maybe by something that's more severe, this is not enough to atone for it. We could give a penalty from a kal v'chaymer, or you can't give a penalty from a kal v'chaymer. Now, I want to point out that on a Super Bowl evening, to have 25 people is a Kiddush Hashem, and the other 5 people probably are celebrating anniversaries, and and they went to pick up the kids winter break, and but anyway,
what's this of an uncle of the Achayavi?
What do you mean?
I understand of Mishkal Zachar because it's a male, but what's the Issa? What's the other Chet?
The Isser is because he's a relative, just like sleeping with an ant is forbidden. Now, v'Rabbanan, ashar le'eishis aviv minalahu, the Rabbanan that say ervas avicha is referring to the nakedness of the father itself. So where do we see a warning for the wife of his father, or for the wife of his father? Nafkaluhu me ervas eishis avicha lo yisagala. The nakedness of his father's wife he shouldn't uncover. Rabbi Yehuda mebayle la'ashara le'eishis aviv la'achar misa. That's coming to tell you that a stepmother is forbidden even after the death of the father. Now, how did Rabbanan know that? Rabbanan it's the nakedness of your father. Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says, that's coming to tell me that Mishum Eishis of Ata Mechayvai, you're only Mechayev him for being his father's wife, but not for being an Eishis Ish. V'ata Mechayvai Mishum Eishis Ish. Says the Gemara, but V'anan Tanan Habal Eishis of Chayiv Allah Mishum Eishis of Mishum Eishis Ish, you're Chayiv for Eishis of, and for her being a married woman, Bein B'chayav, Bein Lacha Misas Aviv, both in the lifetime of the father and after the father died. That's an independent halacha, but it says here clearly that you're chayiv both for the fact that it's your father's wife and also that she's a married woman. V'loi polig Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue on that. Says the Gemara, he doesn't argue in the Mishnah, but he argues in a brayso. Amar Abaye polig bebrayso. V'Rabbanan Einish to Eishis Aviv La'achar Misa, that he's chayiv, that there's a penalty for a stepmother even after the death of his father. Lo Aleinu Minalo. Bishleim Rabbi Yehuda Ma'isla B'Gzeira Shavik learns it out from the Gzeira Shava of Ervas Avichai. Ela Rabbanon Minalo. How do rabbis know that there's a prohibition for sleeping with his father's wife even after his father died? Imrei la chahu ervas aviv gila, that ervas aviv he uncovers. The mapikla Rabbi Yehuda l'gzeira shava that Rabbi Yehuda uses for the gzeira shava, mapkele inu the Rabbanan use it la'einish deishis aviv la'achamisa, for the punishment of a father's wife after the death of the father. V'Rabbanan einish le'imay she'ena eishis aviv minalu. Rabbanan, the penalty for a mother out of wedlock. How do we know? Because he doesn't have the Gzeira Shava. Amar Rav Shesha B'Rei Ravidi Amar Kra Imchei Asa Kasav le'imay she'ena eishis aviv. The Torah makes a mother out of wedlock Ki'imay shehi eishis aviv, like a mother who is married to his father. Mishnah ends off, Habal Kalasai, one who sleeps with his daughter-in-law, says the Gemara, so he's chayiv for the fact that she's his daughter-in-law, and she's also chayiv for the fact that she's a married woman. Says the Gemara, but the pasuk also says the language of Eishes B'nai. So there should be a third prohibition because it's his son's wife. The L'chayiv nami mishum Eishes B'nai. So the Gemara basically says in the same pasuk that says, don't sleep with your daughter-in-law, Eishes B'nai, it's telling you that daughter-in-law and the wife of your son is the same thing. Amar Abaye pasuk hakasav b'kalasei, we're calling her a daughter-in-law, v'sayim b'Eishes B'nai, and ends up calling her his son's wife. Laimalach zui kalasei zui Eishes B'nai, it's the same thing, and you're not chayiv 2 times for each of those names. Okay, just getting underway over here on an evening when we hope to also learn a chak. So a feta evening with a Gemara that weaves in and out with unusual drushes.
Rabbi Weiss, a stepson's wife, what would the law be? Is that considered a daughter-in-law?
A stepson's wife would not be a daughter-in-law.
A daughter-in-law?
No. It would not be.
Okay.
Now, I want to give Akdama to the next Gemara, which I mentioned when we finished Makis. So Makis finishes off with the famous Mishnah of Rav Chananya ben Akashya Omer. Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakay says Yisrael. And the Rav learns that Hashem wanted to give Klal Yisrael more merit. So the Fikach Hirbalahem Torah mitzvahs, which means that he gave us mitzvahs which anyway we wouldn't do. and he gave us a mitzvah not to eat cockroaches. Now, besides Barry, who's munching on one now, most of us wouldn't eat cockroaches anyway. But Hashem made it a mitzvah to give us extra. This next Gemara is a perfect example of this. The Gemara is going to talk about bestiality. Hashem gave us a mitzvah not to sleep with an animal. Now, the furthest thing from Barry's mind is to sleep with an animal. But he gets a mitzvah for not sleeping with an animal. A woman gets a mitzvah for not bringing an animal upon her. So that's an example of Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zaka, he says, Yisrael. Wanted to give us chusa.
She has to think this?
Huh?
She has to think.
You don't have to be busy with thinking. Just have to avoid sleeping with an animal.
Is it automatic?
This is automatic, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see a dog, you could say, I'm not going to sleep with that dog. If you want to do that, you can do that. But the fact that we fulfill the mitzvahs of not eating vermin, that's a mitzvah. You know, I remember Rav Miller talked about that the New York Times had a gathering where they had all kinds of chocolate-covered insects. And we're not going. We're not going to partake. Barish looks so disappointed. We're not going to go. Mel says, I'd get heartburn from that. But anyway, okay, so now, says the Mishnah, Habo ala zocher, if somebody has a homosexual relationship, v'ala behema, or a bishiali, v'isha amavia as a behema, or a woman that brings an animal upon herself, beskila. The din is stoning. Now, not only is the woman stoned, but also the animal is stoned. So ask the Mishnah, what do you want from the poor animal? If the man sinned, behema ma'chata, what was the sin of the animal? Since one person had a downfall from it, we're afraid that maybe other people would have a downfall from it. That's one reason. That the animal shouldn't afterwards be passing in the market. You see that animal? That animal caused Mr. Schmidt to get stoned. That's why it says that after the incident of the Bilam's donkey talking and besting Bilam, the donkey died. Because it was a donkey that would have brought Bilam embarrassment. Now we're going to go on a hunt to find the sources. Remember, when we look up sources over here, we're looking for a source for a prohibition, for a azhara, and for an einish, and for a punishment. It's a double-barreled search. So says the Gemara, Zachar minalan. How do we know that a homosexual relationship is forbidden? And by the way, this is why it's very difficult to say that there are people that are meant to be homosexual. Because we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'truni and b'riyosef. Hashem doesn't ask us what we cannot do. And if Hashem made homosexuality a death sentence, it wouldn't be correct that he would make somebody that they need to be a homosexual. Of course, this is all not politically correct whatsoever. But the Rishiva in his writing says that it is environmentally created. And now today, there are claims of children that from a very young age have no interest about women at all. So this needs, it's beyond the scope of the shir to deal with these very unusual cases, but the Gedolim have spoken about this in great length. But anyway, so Zacha Minalan, how do we know that homosexuality is forbidden? The Tan Rabbanan, Ish, an adult, Prat Lekatan, it excludes from punishment a child. Asher Yishkav es Zacher, who sleeps with a male. Now the adult is chayiv, ben gadol, ben katan, whether he sleeps with an adult or a minor. Mishkevei Isha, the sleepings of a woman. Now this Mishkevei Isha teaches us that by a woman, one who commits, let's say, adultery, is chayiv whether he has normal sex or anal sex. That there are two ways to sleep with a woman. Regular sex and anal sex, and it's chayiv for both types. I'm Rabbi Shmuel, here it's on the simple level, it's talking about sleeping with a man in the form of in the way like sleeping with a woman. V'nimtza laman, and it teaches us that by a woman both regular and anal sex are forbidden. Mois yumsu, the homosexual person is beskila, is stoned. Atoimer beskila ein elubachas mikol misas amur b'teira, or maybe it's some other execution. Nemar kan, so it says over here the magical words which we compare to necromancy. Nemar kan demeim bam, b'nemar ba'oivi yadaini, and it says by the necromancers demeim bam, malahalam beskila, just like over there it's with stoning. Af kan beskila, so here too it is with stoning. Now, as we start the top of Nun Daled Amud Beis, and by the way, we offer our condolences in public to Aaron Swade, our Chaver Aaron Swade, who lost his sister today. Hanashama should have an aliyah. She should be a good Tibeta for the ganze mishpacha. It's a little early for saying that. Hanashama should have a great aliyah. So now the Gemara says, remember I told you there's two phases. There's the penalty phase, and the penalty source, and the prohibition source. So, Aynei Shemano, here we found the penalty for homosexuality. As hora minayin, how do we know the warning? Talmud Leimer v'ez zachar le'sishkav mishkavei isha, you shouldn't sleep with a male, the sleeping of a woman. Toyevahi, it's an abomination. Lamanu asar l'shoichev, asar l'nishkav minayin, there's the active partner in homosexuality, and the passive partner. So here it says you shouldn't sleep with the male. That's the active partner. What about the passive partner? So Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, Lo yiyeh kadesh mibnei Yisrael. There shouldn't be a harlot in the male from the Bnei Yisrael. Now, how do you know that this person is considered a harlot? Because anybody that does an abomination is considered a kadesh. So the one that's the passive partner of the homosexuality is doing an abomination. V'aymer v'gam kodesh he ba'aretz, he is a harlot in the land. Asu kekol ha'to'eves hagoyim, doing like all the abominations of the Gentiles asher ha'irish that you drove out of the land. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. So here, Rabbi Yishmael says that the prohibition of the passive partner in the homosexuality is lo yiyeh kadesh. Rabbi Akiva says, no, we're going to do over here, we're going to read a word in two different ways, because we have that luxury since the Torah doesn't have any nekudas. So Rabbi Akiva tells us, Einat tzarech, you don't have to come on to lo yeh kadesh. Hariyu aimer ve'ezachar lo sishkav mishkavei isha. And we also read loy sishkav kribe loy sishachev. Shouldn't be slept with. So therefore, it also refers to the passive partner. Okay, now we just covered homosexuality. Now we're going to get to bestiality. Now, I remember the last time I learned Sanhedrin in the Daf Yomi, I was the Rav of the Good of Staten Island. Now I'm the Rav of the Good of Fairways, but the last time I learned Sanhedrin, I was the Rav of the Good of Fairways, and I remember distinctly that somebody asked in the shir, why do we have to learn about bestiality? It's nauseating, and it's not negei l'maisa. So Barry, I remember that Lenny Lowenthal quoted his brother, who goes around and talks about the internet, and he said, you could tell Lenny, I quoted him, I remember it. He said that, and this was, again, remember this was 7.5 years ago. He said that there were over 2 million sites about bestiality on the internet. That was 7.5 years ago. 2 million.
It went up, Rabbi Weiss. It's now 2,010,000.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot more than that.
The whole AIDS thing, it came about from that, they say.
No,
No?
But this is good.
it came from the guy who
Oh,
left
yeah.
at Pilot from Africa. That's not from animals.
Anyway, Rabbi Kranz, Barry's a little bit expert on the subject, but could talk to him later about it. Yeah.
Is Marshall on tonight? Is Marshall there tonight?
No, he's not. He's not.
AIDS is a primate disease.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes, it is.
I thought it was because he had relations with a primate.
Yeah, yes, it is. But now I know. I finally figured out what Barry is going to dress up like. Okay, but anyway,
This is something, Jewish people wouldn't do this. I mean, they may learn it from Goyim, but this comes from Goyim.
Of course. Rav Miller says, he quotes a famous Yalkut Shemaini, that when we push off the Sa'ir La'azazel from the cliff, it's mechaper without tshuva. And very rare things that are mechaper without tshuva. He says Sa'ir is the hairy one, is Esav. And it's mechaper v'nasa es avoinoisam. It bears avoin tam, the sins of Yaakov. Because the idea is we say we're pushing the Goyish influence off the cliff. Without the Goyish influence, we wouldn't do a lot of things. Who would say 4-letter words if they didn't hear it from the Goyim? Nobody. Hear it from the Goyim. Jewish children are putting piercings in their tongue. They're learning it from the Goyim. Where are they learning it from? They're not learning it in the Beis Yaakov. Says the Gemara, so now let's get to one of Barry's favorite subjects. Says, Behema minalan, how do we know? Behema minalan, how do we know that there's a prohibition of bestiality? The Tana Rabbanan ish, prat l'katan. Again, a minor is exempt. Asher yitein shkoftoi bebehema, that sleeps with an animal, bein gedola, bein katana, whether the animal is big, whether the animal is small. Mois yumas beskila, they're put to death with stoning. Or maybe it's one of the other deaths. Nemakan tarogu, he's killed. And it says by the subverter of the idolatrous city that he's put to death, he's killed. Malahalan beskila, just like over there, it's skila, the subverter gets skila. Afkan beskila. So lamandu oynesh l'shoichev, to the one that sleeps with the animal. Oynesh l'nishkav minalan. What about if a woman brings an animal upon her? How do we know? Ta'amalay mikol shoichev in behema mais yumas. If it's not needed for sleeping, because we already had a pasuk for sleeping, Lamanu oynesh bein l'sheich bein l'nishkav. So we have a penalty both for the active partner and the passive partner. As haraminayin. What about the prohibition? Talmud leimu b'chol behema loisitein shchavtecha l'tomava. With any animal you shouldn't lie with to defile. Lamanu ashar l'sheicher, for the active partner. L'nishkav minayin. What about the passive partner? So here Rabbi Yishmael again quotes the pasuk of Lo Yeh Kadesh. You shouldn't be a harlot. A harlot is anybody that engages in an abomination. B'nai Yisrael, I remember Gam Kadesh Ibaretz. There are harlots in the land that do all of the abominations like the nations which we drove out. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Kiva over here again says we're going to read the word in two ways, since there's no nekudas. Rabbi Kiva, you shouldn't sleep with. And we do also read it like you shouldn't allow yourself to sleep with, being the passive partner. Now, Habala Zachar, one who sleeps with a male, Vehevi alav Zachar, and brings a male onto himself, so he's the active partner and the passive partner. So if he does it b'shoigeg, l'divrei Rabbi Yishmael chayiv shtayim. According to Rabbi Yishmael, it's two different psukim. One is you're not supposed to sleep with a male, and one is lo yeh kadesh, shouldn't be a harlot. So since it's two different shemais, he's chayiv two different chatas. Chadam Eloi Sishkav, the Chadam Eloi Yeh Kadesh. The Divrei Rabbi Kiva, since he learns it out from the same pasuk, but we read it Loi Sishkav and Loi Sishachev, so it's learned out from the same pasuk, Ein Chayev Ela Achas, because Loi Sishkav and Loi Sishachev Chadahi is the same verse, so he's only chayev one chatas if he does it unwittingly. The same thing is true with the animal. Habala Behema. Are you writing all of this down, Barry? I'm going to test you on it. Habala Behema, if he sleeps with the animal, he's the active person with the animal. Vehevi Behema alav, and he's the passive person with the animal. Am Rabbi Avo, the Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, again chayiv shtayim, because it's two different psukim. Chadam milei sitein shchavtecha, you shouldn't sleep with the animal. V'chadam milei yeh kadesh, again, it's two separate shemais, so there's two different chayiv chatas. The Divrei Rabbi Kiva, since it's the same pasuk, it just read differently. Eino chayiv ela achas, because shchavtecha and shchivascha chadahi is one verse. Abaye Amar, Abaye says, "Afilu l'divrei Rabbi Yishmael nami einay chayev el achas." Why? Because the chiksiv lo yiyeh kadesh, when it says you shouldn't be a harlot, begavrei ksiv. That's only by men, not by an animal. So then we're back to the question: then how does Rabbi Yishmael know a warning for one who is a passive participant with an animal? Rabbi Yishmael azhara l'nishkav minole. How does he know a warning for someone that's a passive participant with an animal? Nafkale mikol sheichev im behema mois yumas. Anybody sleeps with an animal is put to death. Now, it's not needed the imein Indian sheichev, because we already have loisitein shkaftecha. Teneu Indian lenishka for the passive partner, but it's called sheichev. The apke rachman lenishka b'lashon sheichev ma sheichev onesh b'hizer. Just like one who sleeps gets a penalty and a warning. Af nishkav onesh b'hizer. Now, hanirva l'zachar v'hanirva l'behema. If one is a passive partner by a male and a passive partner by an animal. Amar Rabbi Avo, l'divrei Rabbi Akiva chayiv shtayim. One for the prohibition with an animal, one for the prohibition with a male. Chadam eloi sishkav, the chada miloi sitein shchavtecha. L'divrei Rabbi Yishmael eina chayiv ela achas, because he learns out according to the first opinion, not according to Abaya, he learns out the passive from lo yiyah kadosh, not to be a harlot. Aidi v'aidi lo yiyah kadoshu. So therefore, the passive partner in bestiality and a passive partner in homosexuality is the same love, so he's only chayiv one chatas. Abayam afilu divrei Rabbi Yishmael nami chayiv shtayim, because the chsiv kol sheichev and behema mois yumas. So one is from lo yiyah kadosh, and one is from kol sheichev and behema mois yumas. Imena inyan l'sheichev teneu inyan l'nishkev v'apke rachman l'nishkev v'lach sheichev ma sheichev, for sleeping onish v'hizer, af nishkav, so also the passive onish v'hisker. Avo, habal hazechur. Whoa, this is, the grand slam of sins. I guess tonight I should say touchdown. Anybody that really wanted to see the game and is recording it and seeing it later, it's an extra schuss. Extra schuss. But if somebody sleeps with a male, he's the active partner, and the passive partner. If somebody sleeps with an animal, the heavy behema love. So Bein Rabbi Avo, Bein Labaya, both according to Rabbi Avo and Abaya. Rabbi Yishmael Chayiv Shalish. According to Rabbi Yishmael, he gets 3 chatois, right? He gets 3 chatois. So let's see. For sleeping with the male, he gets a lav of leisishkev. And for being the passive partner in homosexuality, it's lo yiyah kadosh. And for having relations with the animal, it's lo sitein shchavtecha. But for the passive, that he learns out from the same pasuk of lo yiyah kadosh. Now, according to Abaya, when he sleeps with the zachar and brings the zachar upon him, that's as zachar leisishkav and lo yiyah kadosh. But on a behema and brings the behema on him, they're both from leisitein shchavtecha, because the bringing the animal upon him is from the same pasuk where we said that we compare a nishkev to a sheichev. So according to both of them, you're chayiv 3, and Rabbi Akiva, and according to Rabbi Akiva, you're chayiv 2. You're chayiv for 2 lavin, because remember Rabbi Akiva reads leisitein shkaftecha and leisitein shchivasech from the same pasuk. So for the male, the active and the passive is one pasuk, and by the animal, the active and the passive is from one pasuk with a different reading. So according to Rabbi Akiva, you're only chayiv 2. Kana Rabbanan, zechur by a male, loy also by cotton kagad. You're only chayiv if the homosexual partner was an adult, meaning was roy labia and not a child. Now here we're not talking about 13. Behema also b'ktana kigdola. By an animal, any age of an animal, it's bestiality. So my loy also by cotton kigadol. What does it mean that by homosexuality the partner cannot be a minor? Now we said that you're chayiv even if the partner is under bar mitzvah. But Amar Rav loy also bias pachas meben tesha shanim keben tesha shanim. They didn't make a bia of someone that's less than 9-year-olds, to someone that is more than a 9-year-old. In other words, a bia of a less than a 9-year-old, you're not chayiv. U'shmuel no, it's 3 years old and less than 3 years old. Also bias poches mi ben shalosh ke ben shalosh shanim. They didn't make somebody that's less than 3 to somebody that's more than 3. So why does one learn 9-year-old and one says 3-year-old? Usually 3-year-old is the amount by a girl. So why by a man? But my kamifligi, Rav Savar called the isei b'shoichev, isei b'nishkev. Whatever is necessary for the one who's sleeping, that he has to be 9 years old to be a bar bia, that's what's necessary for the one that's slept with. They called the leisei b'shoichev, leisei b'nishkev. So then the cutoff will be 9 years old. Well, Shmuel Savar mishkevei isha, like the sleeping of a woman. And women are only if they're above 3 years. So over here, it'll only be a homosexual act if the partner is above 3 years, not if it's below 3 years. Okay, Rabbi, so we'll stop over here. It's interesting. You learn this Gemara and you say, this is considered Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, and the answer is yes. The Rabbi Nishlam wanted us to learn this and to show us that Baruch Hashem, we're Am Kedoshecha, we don't have any of this, and the truth of the matter is if we'd have the Yetzer Hara, then we'd be running after animals. The Rabbi Nishlam spared us the Yetzer Hara.
Rabbi, when it talks about sleeping with an animal, I assume that means sexual intercourse, because I know a lot of people sleep with their pets.
No, it's not talking about having the dog in the bed. It's talking about intercourse. Okay, now we're going to have a chok, Rabbi Isai. We did already start Shavuos, and it is already on Torah Anytime and Kol Haloshin and YouTube.